Hi everyone, and today we're talking about the new Sony FX5. So I've had the Canon C50 for nearly a year now, and when the FX5 came, I was quite intrigued with some of the specs. And this video is just to share my experience as a C50 user, and having used it for 4 shoots now. I took it to a mini dock where we spent 2 days shooting in open gate XOCN C2 at 50p. The other 2 were events. One of them where I shot vertically, and the other which I shot horizontally, not in RAW. This camera attracted me with 3 key specs. Firstly, open gate 3x2 up to 60p at this point of time. So this is important to me because today I shoot many corporate videos and events, including weddings, and I like to shoot in 50p all the time, except during interviews. This is the first camera in the market that can do 50p right now, and that was something that I use extensively for that mini dock. The number 2 thing was the tree-based ISO. Again, I've had this on the C80 which I own, and it has been really useful. And while this one is a step up at 4000, so I found myself using the 800 and 4000 more. In fact, only these 2 during the event which I shot in the day, which was traveling between a bright and slightly darker place. And the last being the availability of RAW. Sony has given us 2 additional flavors which are smaller compressed RAW, and especially the C2, which is said to be slightly larger than the intra-frame codec, the XAVC. All in all is that I did manage to shoot in both RAW and XAVC for this time, and I'll share some footages. So here we have the Mercury shooting at 25p open gate. I purposely shot this against the Canon C50, both in open gate with the same lens, same adapter, and I can see a bit of difference that the C50 is actually slightly wider as compared to the FX5. But the color is also slightly different, of course, being different camera brands. So the next thing I'll talk about is the monitor and control app. Other manufacturers have similar apps, but this one is so easy to connect and I don't need to remember anything. It's very intuitive. So let's talk about the cons. First thing is the false color. It's very strange that the false color doesn't work when you're recording. Especially when you're tuning a VND, you want to turn on the false color to check, or CPL just doesn't work. Next thing is the magnify. When you trigger a shortcut button to magnify, you cannot move the position where you're zooming. You just need to use this little joystick here to do it, and it's kind of weird. Third would be the touchscreen record. I have this function on the Canon system and I find it very useful. I really hope that they consider to have it. And the last is this weird menu where you can trigger, let's say, 100p in open gate. They will allow you to trigger it, but when you trigger, it reboots and it starts in a different codec without you knowing. So if you don't pay attention, then good luck. So I hope they can do some kind of grey out, in that mode that doesn't allow you to set something that is not available in that mode. So the next thing I'll talk about is the ergonomics. I shot it for 1 full day and I woke up with a wrist pain. They made this a bit deeper, but for some reason I didn't feel very good because my hands are not so big. And then because of the larger screen now, you don't have the jog dial, and I end up having a problem here that I set the ISO here, but I accidentally turned the dial and moved the ISO without noticing. So after I realized the problem, I was a bit more careful and I would look at the ISO here and then to check that I did not accidentally switch it. Oh yes, one thing though, during the event shoot where I had to mount it vertically, I realized that if you don't have a cage and you try to mount a plate directly to that hole, it's going to be off. That means it will not be fully seated flat. And when mounting on the gimbal, you have a problem. You have a lopsided image, but I guess most people who buys this will put on the cage anyway. So in conclusion, I think the FX5 is an outstanding camera. Sony has packed a lot under this little body. It's just slightly larger than FX3 and it has so many upgrades under the hood. Of course, all this comes at a price of $6,399 Sing dollars. I would say that if you are a current Sony user and you need that open gate 50p or that tree-based ISO, then it's worth upgrading. But if you're coming from a different camera brand, you got to think about the cost to switch the entire system, and is this worth it for you at this point of time? So for me, I'll just look at whether what gets my job done at this moment, and if it's worth it or not. So the answer lies with you. So I hope this has been useful. Till the next time, bye bye.